There we go. And good afternoon, everybody. We're back with the legend of Pennsylvania Anomalous Research, Mr. Stan Gordon. Right here, Stan. We've known each other a very long
Yes, we
time.
have.
And this is our first time we've been at Albatwitch Festival.
Yes, it is for
together.
all of us.
Right. And
Yeah.
of course, we've got Lon, who's
Yep.
just at the end of the table, but there's just too much handsome for one camera to take.
Yeah, whatever makes you feel
Is
good.
what that is. Right. We've got Eric Altman running in the background. And Walt Winkle. That's a group right there.
That was a cryptid.
That was well, I don't even know what we'd name that. So Stan, you had your presentation today. How was that?
It was great. We had a packed house. A lot of interesting people. People came up afterwards sharing their sightings with me, and people asked for my number and went to talk to me confidentially about sightings down here, but went very, very well.
Did you get anything that stand out today that you're like, man, I got to jump on right away?
There were a couple of things people kind of said they want to talk to me about, things they've seen recently. One, I think, was a very close Bigfoot sighting.
Oh, that's nice.
So I expect to be following up. It has been extremely busy in Pennsylvania for the last few years, all this year, right through the last few days. A lot of reports of a lot of anomalies coming in.
Now, you were telling me, Stan, that Thunderbirds have become a big thing that's being sighted again, particularly in the northern part of Pennsylvania. And we've talked, these can't be confused with any other known birds in that area.
Yeah, well, we do get Thunderbird reports on occasion every year, but this year, and interesting, I didn't post anything on my website till months later. So these people had no idea. So I was getting a number of reports in Southwest PA, but also I got one last week from northern Pennsylvania up around the New York PA borders.
Okay.
And then I've had some down in this area. But most of these have been daylight sightings, but very low level, like around 20 feet above the cars. And everybody's talking about the wingspan was huge, like 15, 20-foot wingspans in a lot of cases.
Which is covering the road. Like that's a road.
Yeah.
That's a road span. Definitely not going to be an eagle.
No,
that way.
All these people, they knew bald eagle, they knew blue herons, right. They knew, all the major birds in Pennsylvania, the bigger ones, and they said this is nothing close to what they saw.
And I think it's important to know that because the people from this area are used to seeing eagles, are used to seeing herons.
Oh, yeah.
They are familiar with these birds.
Yeah.
I mean, like the people reporting these things, they're no slouches when it comes to identification of animals.
Well, we're
close to the area.
We're close to the Chesapeake, so we have a lot of large shorebirds and a lot of herons and stuff that come up the Susquehanna and then come into South Central Pennsylvania. So yeah, they're not mistaken.
Right.
Well, under the Thunderbird categories, actually there's several different categories under that topic. So in general, we get a lot of just the huge, oversized, generally dark brown or black birds with massive wingspans. And then you get these other reports of leathery skinned, featherless black bats, huge, giant, leathery bats. You've heard those, Lon. And then you've got reports also, people are really reluctant to talk about it. They swear they see something that's prehistoric. Pterodactyl, teratorns. But interestingly, even the last few years, people are describing the tail, and what they're describing is this unusual appendage, something like a football, something on the end, similar to what some of the prehistoric flying lizards look like, which is really intriguing. And I mean, these witnesses are just like the Bigfoot witness I interview, UFO. They're credible people. They're afraid to talk about it. They're afraid of being laughed at. I deal with this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
You got so many reputable people seeing weird things out there, but you're not hearing about in the news because they don't want any publicity.
I know we're still have a great deal of 2024 left, Stan, but what's the strangest thing that's been reported to you this year?
I have pages and pages of synopsis of reports coming in. We're getting a lot of reports for the last few years. I've known about it for years since with what the government's calling tic tacs.
Okay, yeah.
But a lot last year, even in recent weeks, earlier months of this year in daylight, low level, it's very long, cylindrical, wingless objects hovering in beautiful afternoons. And there's a number of pictures of it on my website. So they're just hovering there, in many cases, just vanishing and gone, or moving very slow across the sky.
Tic Tacs, Lon, what do you think?
I don't know what to think. I saw, of course, like everybody else did, the videos of the disclosures, so-called disclosure. Mostly orbs, as opposed to tic tac shape. And Stan and I were talking earlier. I mean, there's a lot more orb sightings, and not necessarily just orbs as UFOs, but in relation to cryptid sightings as well.
Yep.
Many times people see later on, or even an investigator will go to an area, and it's happened to me, where I'll go do an investigation, we start seeing orbs. And that seems to be more prevalent than it had been for years previous.
And when you asked me that question, that's exactly what I should have said. The most interesting thing, and I think one of the most important parts of UFO or UAP mystery now, are the continuous reports of these smaller objects. I knew about these in the 60s. I've been calling them mini UFOs for years. There's a lot more to it. It's very strange. 2022, we had the biggest surge of these cases in Pennsylvania anywhere in history, anywhere in the country. So these are the smallest ones we knew about in 72. They're about the size of oversized fireflies.
Okay.
But most of them around the size of a golf ball to a baseball, about a foot or two in diameter. Various colors. Over the years, I had reports of these things in daylight, pacing vehicles, entering people's homes and cars through open windows. I've had them tap on people's living room windows, and then when they're looked at, they take off. I've had them enter people's homes in recent months and years. Okay. And in 2022, and even cases we've had in recent months, these things have been approaching people in daylight within a few feet of them. It's amazing. So I'll give you a couple examples. 2022, with all these reports going in October, cold month, you had a report up in Fayette County of my associate Jim Brown investigated 6 o'clock in the morning. It's very cold. The lady finds this man or this her husband sleep on the porch in his robe and slippers, which he would never do. When she finally awakened him, she said that he told her that he was going out to get the paper bin delivered. There's a small sphere hovering right at face level. He got so close to it, all of a sudden he got so tired he couldn't stay awake. 3 days later, so you've got the Chestnut Ridge and the Laurel Ridge, southwest.
Right.
Again, both very active. 3 days later, outside of Ligonier, there's a lot of weird stuff going on. This woman gets up at 2:30 in the morning, her home to go to the bathroom, comes out of the bathroom, 5 feet away, here's this about a 1.5 2 foot diameter dark blue sphere with a dark mass moving around the side of it. She took one step towards it. She felt like a slight electrical jolt. And then she said she got so tired she couldn't stay awake. And the next day she felt very weak, very sickly. And she said, I'm an insomniac. I don't fall asleep like that. So interestingly, he had 2 similar physiological effects in 3 days. But I'm hearing other reports that are a little more serious now. And, it's interesting. Lou Alessandro.
Yep.
Okay. So, his new book is out. Okay. And, the last few weeks have been in the news because he's a whistleblower. He apparently was a very high level intelligence officer in the Pentagon, who was apparently involved in one of the more recent secret UFO programs. But he actually said on TV and in his book that he and his family have experienced these small globes in their home that they're seeing. So this is going on more and more. And it's got a Bigfoot connection too, because I knew this years ago. All over the country, in Pennsylvania, in areas that have a history of Bigfoot sightings, you also got a history of these small orbs of light coming close to people, even in recent years. Right. So a lot of Bigfoot investigators I knew were skeptical. Now in the last few years, they're seeing themselves and getting reports.
Well, as
you wouldn't happen to know who any of them were you?
You and I were talking last night how all of a sudden these orbs are now being sighted within the vicinity of these Sasquatch reports. I was out in the woods with Rick Chirby and his wife, and we had these orbs floating in the trees that they video. No reason for these orbs to be there. They weren't identifiable as any kind of insects or anything else, but here they are floating above the trees. It's the strangest damn thing. I've experienced the anomalous light phenomena, flashes of light for no reason.
Yep.
It's not lightning. It's just a localized flight. The one time I had almost a dozen people with me at State Game Lands 252, where it was almost like an umbrella of light, and it went as soon as it came.
And I've been hearing that for years.
It's just a strange thing. Like,
So
it's
let me-
something I've experienced.
So let me tell you another even weirder one. So this is October last year, 4 o'clock in the afternoon in an apartment building. The normal day, 2 people sitting on the couch watching TV. Suddenly, a few feet in front of them, this small little solid sphere is hovering. It gets up to about 4 feet off the ground. It's hovering, and suddenly about 10 more of them suddenly appear.
Just bam.
And there's all these things that move around about a 6-foot area. And after a short time, the 10 disappear. The main one floats behind the TV, and they never see it again.
So you hear all these reports now Stan, kind of makes me go back and think about that famous story that you told about the old lady in the trailer park that has that Bigfoot come to the door. She takes a shot out of it and explodes into light.
Well, you got it pretty close. I'll tell you the story because I remember it very well. Well,
That's what I really wanted.
it was February 6, 1974. All this stuff is going, all these weird cases come in all over the state. And some of your listeners will remember at the time it happened, there was a big national trucker strike. There was gas rationing. Everybody remembers the gas rationing. There was violence on the highways across the country, including Pennsylvania. So you had the state police and National Guard patrolling together. You had members of both teams that responded to this incident. I couldn't get gas early the next morning to get up to the site. So what happened was, here's this lady who lives deep in the mountains, Southwest PA, lived in a little cabin home. It's a normal night. She's watching TV. She begins to hear this noise on her little front porch. She has some empty pop cans out there, something knocking the pop cans around. So she thought, you know what? I bet that pack of dogs is back. I'll grab my 16 gauge double barrel shotgun and I'll load one chamber and I'll shoot over her head and I'll scare those dogs away. She proceeds to do that. She loads her shotgun. She starts walking up towards the front door. She hits the switch for the outside light. She opens the door and steps out, but there's no dogs there. 6 feet in front of her is a 7-foot tall gray haired Bigfoot that put his arm straight up over her head when the light came on. And how does she respond? She pulls the trigger. She said there's this bright flash of light, like the flash on a camera, and that huge hairy creature just vanishes. But her in-laws lived 100 feet away. They heard the gunshot. They called, so when you shoot them, her son-in-law grabs a sidearm, starts walking down the dark road, and apparently within a short time, he's confronted by 4 or 5 hairy people with eyes like coals of fire. And about the same time, there's this large luminous object hovering over the trees at the same time. That's when they call it state police. Okay. And I talked to the primary investigator, and he said by the time they found the place, way in the mountains, everything was done. But he said the witnesses were very credible. They were visibly shaken, very detailed what happened. But he said what convinced him were the animal reactions. I've said that for years and years. You can fool people, you can't fool the animals.
Right.
And so many Bigfoot, even in recent weeks and months, we're getting, and sometimes with other phenomena as well, other anomalies, the animals notice it first, and then they react. But in some of the Bigfoot case, even the most vicious dogs, they're like paralyzed. They don't bark, they don't move, they shake, they cower, they hide. That's very, very common.
Now, we are here in Columbia, Pennsylvania, home of the Albatwitch. Have you gotten any reports of the Albatwitch, Stan, over the years? Anything that makes you really think that this being is an interesting little local cryptid?
Well, I can tell you last year, while over the years, I've had reports of 4 to 5 foot tall Bigfoot, along with the larger one, especially in 73 and that time. But last year, we had quite a number of very detailed Bigfoot sightings all across the state, many in daylight, many where people were 40, 50, 60 feet away from them. But we also had an increase in smaller ones, like 4 to 5 feet tall. So I the only one I'm aware of is what Rick Fisher saw. And his story is so intriguing. I mentioned that in my one book. But again, the fact that he comes right up on this thing in early morning, thinking at first it was a young kid, gets up, puts his high beams on. This thing is now, he realized, around 4.5 feet tall. It's very skinny, like a skinny Bigfoot with black hair. It turns around after he puts his high beams on. It has glowing yellow eyes and vanishes right in front of him. So you've got these similar reports.
Right.
I'm telling you, I found a lot of data on this. Nobody has the answers. I don't think anybody, including the government, knows what's going on, but I really believe they're aware of what's going on. And we're dealing with something that has a physical and non-physical aspect to it. For lack of a better term, I'll call it interdimensional. I said years ago, there's more than one origin to the unknown category of the UFO mystery. I think a small percentage are probably extraterrestrial, and I do believe the government has recovered some objects not man-made, but a lot of what we're dealing with has a physical and non-physical component to it. You can't have all these cryptid reports. There's too many, but you've got so many credible people who are seeing them, you can't ignore it. The only thing that makes any sense is under certain conditions, which we don't understand yet, they come into our physical reality, they can leave evidence, they're gone. They come and they go, they're here and they're gone. Just like a lot of the UFO or UAPs are doing. They're hovering in beautiful afternoons, they fade away, or they change physical form right in front of people.
Well, that argument has really hit home with me, even though I believed that from the very beginning, that cryptids, for the most part, I believe are interdimensional. And with stories like yours and accounts you've encountered and what your witnesses have encountered and what I've been working on for years now, especially what has started going on in Chicago with these Mothman sightings or these winged humanoids, I mean, these beings are just in and out so quickly,
Exactly.
and it just they're not indigenous. They're not there physically for a long period of time, and it just happens so many times, not only there but everywhere else.
We're getting reports of all kind of weird. So my new book, Creepy Crypt, has got, you've probably seen it. I mean, it's got things in there nobody's ever heard of before, like the monstrous gigantic spider the people saw on the side of a trailer,
Right.
and weird story. Okay. And then a lot of other things that people are calling in. I mean, calls come in from men, women, children, first responders, hunters, educators. They have no reason to make these stories up, and they don't want their names used, which I don't use their names. And people are calling in all the time. And I'm telling you, it gets crazier and crazier out there. And, I think this is kind of fascinating because I truly believe the government's very much aware of this. They were involved in Skinwalker Ranch, studying all the phenomena there. We know that. They changed the terminology from UFO, unidentified flying object, to UFO, unidentified aerial phenomena, to unidentified anomalous phenomena. What does the term anomalous have to do with anything flying in the sky? It can entail anything from a UFO, anything flying, to any kind of cryptid or anything else.
It's a nondescriptor, right?
I think that they're aware, like I've been aware, and you and others have for years. This stuff is all interconnected somehow. It's all energy connected. The pattern I found many years ago is that many close-range, low-level UFO sightings, many encounters with Bigfoot and other cryptids occur in the vicinity of energy sources. So you have many around high-tension power lines, power plants, gas wells, gas lines, bodies of water, railroad tracks, all kind of communication towers. I have no doubt there's a connection here with a lot of these cases.
And everything you described is in full effect in Pennsylvania.
Oh, definitely. There's no doubt about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just astounding how many instances we hear of some type of supernatural phenomena associated with what people would believe are creatures that are just flesh and blood and are indigenous, but they just really aren't. I mean, and Stan's been saying it for years. I've been hearing Stan talk about it. I've been with my investigations and other investigations I have heard of or been a part of. It's starting to pan out like that. I mean, and more, I think we're gathering evidence that may very well prove, hopefully, that we can,
There's more and more data coming together. There's more and more people out there with good instrumentation. I can tell you in the last several months, some of this stuff has been recorded while it's going on in one of the hot areas in Fayette County, which has a lot of ongoing anomalous activity going on.
Mhm.
There's more and more people I'm hearing all around the country is recording the stuff now. I'm getting a lot of videos in, still pictures in. And again, what else is increasing are the reports of all kind of electromagnetic effects. We've known about this for years. Here's something else a lot of people don't know with Bigfoot. Going back to the 50s, you used to hear reports of these large metallic objects hovering near a vehicle. And when they were close by, the engine would begin to sputter,
Right.
Headlights would dim, the object take off, power came back on. You've got these cases with Bigfoot as well. So we have incidents, including Pennsylvania, where Bigfoot is near a car. When it's near the car loses power, the creature moves off and the power comes back on. There's all kind of EM effects going on. People are trying to take photographs, and there's all kind of strange malfunction, all kind of equipment, professional equipment, all kind of equipment, and many reports in the last few years of fully charged batteries. People are aiming their cameras at these things, and within seconds, the battery's drained.
Yeah.
Right.
This is all energy connected.
Well, Rick was telling us a story last night of being down in that dungeon with that
Okay.
reporter.
Yeah.
Just speaking of the batteries, and they were having this. Somebody felt they had a sighting of a ghost. A door had opened and closed itself or something, and the battery on the camera died
Yeah.
instantly. Fully charged battery just died. So the reporter pulls out her cell phone and starts speaking at the double quick to make sure she could get notations before she loses battery. And and that stuff, as you said, has been documented over time.
Yeah.
I guess are we getting any closer to getting some sort of answer to these mysteries?
I'm telling you, whatever we're dealing with is so beyond our present scientific understanding right now, nobody understands. I think that's why there's so much secrecy, because they know what's going on. It's going on over the world. You're getting more and more information like this, but nobody understands it. And everybody wants to try to figure out the technology or the intelligence, or whatever it is we're dealing with. But we're getting to learn more about it. There's more data coming in. There's more reports from all over the world of similar things going on. So we're learning more. It's just there's patterns to some of it, and then some of it doesn't make any sense at all.
Right.
Some of it is so weird and so bizarre. I said years and years ago, the phenomenon is so strange it protects itself.
I think so. And honestly, I don't know if the new technology is actually the solve. It seems that
may
we
not.
were getting better evidence with the older technology. Analog was better for sound. Older video film was better.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
like, it seems
Can't
like
argue that.
the more we
Yeah.
try to use modern day tech, the less effective it actually becomes.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. I'd absolutely agree with that.
Puts us in another position, right? Because we want to use the modern technology. It just doesn't seem to be working.
Well,
Yeah, so far. I mean, it does seem to be like that. I mean, and it's interesting too when you and I do a lot of this myself, go back and look at old cases.
mhm.
And something that you get a recent case where you think, well, this is just so unusual. I've never heard that. But I go back and start looking and huh, 20 years ago, 25, 30 years ago, the same thing. Um, is it because people are just starting to realize that maybe there is something going on that we just can't explain? Or is it something that, well, maybe technology will catch up to it eventually?
I'll tell you what I'm dealing with. And again, I deal with my hotline, has been up since 1969. Never stops ringing between email reports and phone reports. Almost every day I'm dealing with current and past reports. It's nonstop right through the last few days, right before I left through here. And it's just that more and more people are seeing things out and we're getting more detailed reports. We're getting daylight reports. We're getting low level reports, close range reports. We're getting a lot more detail in the last few years. That's what's increasing the quality of the reports coming in. That's why more people are calling in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find now, even with the hotline going for so long, Stan, that the reports are better reports, that they're more legitimate, more full of information than they used to be? Now that people are paying more attention, you think?
Well, when I started in the field back in 1965 after Kecksburg, I found right at that time that a lot of sightings seem very strange and unusual, whether it's a UFO sighting or a cryptid report. But when you take the time to properly investigate, and many turn to be a natural man-made in origin. There's a lot of misidentification, especially
Right.
with UFOs. So we get those. That's what we get out of the way first. We always try to find an explanation, but you're getting more and more cases you cannot easily explain away. A lot of the UAP reports, the big triangles, rectangular objects. I mean, if you go over some of the cases I worked on over the years, they're incredible cases. I mean, huge objects, low level, great EM effects report of multiple witnesses, police officers sometimes involved. You can't, there's no explanation for these kind of reports. If there was, I'd be the first to do it because we always try. I mean, I had the people I had in my groups over the years. I mean, a lot of these were really high level scientists and engineers who did this anonymously because of their positions. A lot of them came in skeptical. Some of these men and women spent years in the field with me investigating. And after they began to interview witnesses, they saw the evidence at the scene, they saw the animal reaction, see the patterns, they began to realize something really weird is going on here. We just don't know what the heck we're dealing with.
Well, that question you asked, I mean, I think more and more people are feeling less worried about being ridiculed. Of course, you get the internet and everything, and you're seeing more on TV, and people are starting to realize that, hey, maybe what I saw 10, 15 years ago really did happen, and maybe I'll file a report. I get a lot of old reports.
Oh, all the
from,
time.
yeah, from
Yeah.
people who just were very, especially here in Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania overall is a very conservative state.
It really is.
Yeah.
And people come forward now and don't feel like they're going to be criticized for coming forward and saying something about it. And you do get more detail. Even now I get less embellishment as far as reports coming in.
Yeah.
It's not what didn't used to be like that. In the cryptid world, that's kind of unusual, and it's becoming more and more mainstream now.
Right. Because as I say all the time, we've made it far easier now for people to hoax more than ever. We give them
Yeah.
the roadmaps of everything they need to have the perfect Bigfoot sighting. The fact that these reports aren't more elaborate kind of gives me comfort that, you know what, they're probably a little bit more legitimate.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, people are more to the point now, and they just do not embellish. I mean, they tell you what they think they saw or what they saw,
yeah.
and then you go from there.
Well, sometimes you've got to go back and you've got to reintroduce your question a different way
Oh,
without
yeah.
leading people.
Yeah.
I
Right.
had one just the other day, and I knew the person was telling me the truth and had a really interesting, really weird dog reaction too. And there was also video with it. But what she was describing to me, it didn't make sense, especially after I got the video. And when she was able to re-explain to me, then I understood because the
Yeah.
way she was explaining to me, it wasn't accurate. It made it sound like it was something completely different, but she was telling the truth.
Yeah, that language guy, like sometimes they just don't know what the
Yeah, they don't know how to
Yeah.
they're
explain it.
trying to
Yeah,
explain,
exactly.
they just don't know how.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you got to try to get them there without leading them
Yeah,
there, right? Like,
Exactly.
it is difficult. And for anybody that says that it's a bunch of kooks out there looking for kooky stuff, they just don't really know what they're talking
Oh.
about. There's a legitimate application of interview technique, forensics,
Yeah.
and you know, and at least in your guys' part, not so much mine, you know, intelligence. And
Look,
you gotta have that.
Listen, some of the people I've interviewed, I wish I could tell you some of these people who they are and their backgrounds. You would be amazed the quality of these reports and the level of some of these people and where they were and what they do. They have no reason to make it up. They're reluctant to tell anybody about it or make reports on it, but they want to share with somebody and see what they can find out.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, I go back to the one case I investigated in 2016 that came through the PBS was a gentleman who works for the state, the game commission. You know, you're putting your whole career out there on a line to come out and talk about something that's not supposed to
Yep.
exist in Pennsylvania, but he's out hunting one morning and this thing that doesn't exist stumbles upon his field of view when he's out deer hunting, changes his life. Well, now
Yep.
what do I do?
And over the years, I have talked to multitudes of people in all kind of interesting positions from different agencies who have seen things. And you know they're telling the truth.
Right.
Yeah, they have no reason to make it up, and they just don't want to get out there publicly. Yeah,
You know, I talked to I talked to a particular individual who just retired from state game commission, and he was he was an officer, and he had no reason to lie to me, and he just told me point blank, you know, don't buy into what the state's trying to tell you. You know, if I'll tell you what I saw, what I experienced, and there's a lot of stuff out there that just is really not coming to the forefront.
that's it.
And then we got to find out why.
Yeah,
And I
well,
think it
that's
goes back to maybe what Stan is saying is because they don't know. And it's easier to deny it than to admit that we don't know what the hell we're dealing with.
I truly believe that's what it's all about.
And I think that's where we leave it.
Yeah, yeah.
Stan, thanks
Yeah.
for spending some time with us,
Thanks
my
very
friend.
much. That's
Always
it.
good to have you, brother.
That's it.
Lon, thank you. And we're going to end it for now, folks. Alba Twitch Festival winding down here in Columbia, PA. Ron Murphy's in there speaking right now. We had Death Turnip. What was the name of the group underneath us?
I have no
I
idea.
don't remember. Tang Moon. That's
That's what it
I don't
was.
know how you
Tang
get Death
Moon.
Turnip out of Tang Moon, but they're downstairs playing. It's been a great day, guys. Thanks for tuning in with us. Stan, always a pleasure. And we'll catch you a little later.
Thanks for
folks.
having me on.
No problem.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Dan.
Oh, thank you, guys.
Thanks, Stan.
When are you guys airing this thing?
It,
It's
it,
going